There's a moment every summer that most tomato gardeners know all too well. Everything looks great, the plants are filling in nicely, and then almost out of nowhere, those yellow and brown spots start creeping up the lower leaves. Early blight, leaf spot, some fungal thing depending on the climate and the season. And the reaction is almost always the same. Head to the garden centre, grab something in a bottle with a long name on the label, spend more money than seems reasonable, and hope for the best. But gardeners who've been through enough seasons to separate what actually works from what just sounds convincing tend to land on the same answer. The most effective defence against these common fungal diseases has probably been sitting in the bathroom cabinet the whole time. Hydrogen peroxide, the plain 3% solution at any pharmacy or grocery store. Same thing used to clean a cut, sometimes as a mouth rinse or for other medical purposes. Brown bottle, white cap, that's the whole thing. Before reaching for the spray bottle though, one step really shouldn't be skipped. Test spraying. Take whatever mix has been prepared, apply it to just a few leaves on each plant variety, and wait 48 hours before doing anything else. Just because a spray works perfectly in one garden doesn't mean it won't cause damage in another. Climate, plant variety, local conditions, it all changes how plants respond. The test spray sounds like an unnecessary extra step, right up until it saves an entire row of plants. The ratio that tends to work well for tomatoes is around 6 to 8 tablespoons of 3% hydrogen peroxide per gallon of water as a starting point. The ratio is generally increased over time, starting at 6 tablespoons, then 8, then 10, and eventually settling at 12 tablespoons per gallon as the most effective result. It is recommended to start on the lower end, do a test spray, and scale up gradually. Different growing zones deal with different diseases, and the sweet spot can shift depending on the climate. Chemistry behind why it works is pretty simple. Hydrogen peroxide, H₂O₂, is 2 hydrogen atoms and 2 oxygen atoms bonded together in a single molecule. That bond is unstable. When the spray lands on fungi like early blight or leaf spot sitting on the surface of a leaf, those molecular bonds break apart. Electrons shift, energy is released, that's oxidation, and the fungi get killed on contact. The hydrogen peroxide converts into water and oxygen, and nothing harmful stays on the plant. Sunlight also speeds that whole process along, which is actually why hydrogen peroxide is stored in brown bottles. Expose it to light and it breaks down before it ever gets the chance to do anything useful. On a leaf in the garden, though, that reaction is exactly what's needed. One thing a lot of people don't realise is that hydrogen peroxide works differently from the standard preventative sprays, baking soda, wettable sulfur, products like Serenade or daconil, which mainly prevent fungal diseases from establishing in the first place. Hydrogen peroxide actually kills the fungi on contact. That distinction matters a lot when there's already an outbreak underway and not just a future risk. And the results back this up in practice. Growing 15 or 20 cherry tomato plants just 1 foot apart, which is basically an open invitation for disease to sweep through the whole planting, and going the entire season without a single spot of blight. Nothing. The only thing between those plants and the usual summer disaster was a spray bottle filled with something picked up at the grocery store for under $2. The spray, though, is only half the system. The other half that usually gets skipped is the routine. Pick a schedule, every 7 days, every 10, every 14, and then actually hold to it. What protects plants from fungal disease isn't one big treatment applied after the first symptoms show up. It's consistent preventive spraying that starts before anything is visible. In areas like Maryland, early blight tends to arrive around mid-July, and leaf spot can show up as early as May. That means getting the spray routine going about 2 weeks before those windows open, before there's a single spot to react to. The whole idea is to stay ahead of it, not chase it down after the fact. The spray works on other crops too, with a bit of care. Plants in the Brassica family, kale, cabbage, broccoli, have thick, tough leaves that handle the same concentration used on tomatoes without any trouble. Squash and zucchini are more sensitive, their leaves softer, so the concentration probably needs to come down a bit. Cucumbers get fungal disease, and squash is notorious for powdery mildew. Hydrogen peroxide can help with both. But the point isn't to coat everything in the garden just because it worked somewhere else in the planting. Spot treat. Only spray what actually has a problem, or what past seasons have shown is genuinely at risk. The organic question always comes up, and it's worth being direct about. Hydrogen peroxide isn't certified organic as a garden spray, technically true. But it's H₂O₂, 2 hydrogen atoms, 2 oxygen atoms. It breaks down into water and oxygen, and nothing accumulates or lingers behind. The certification and what a compound actually does in the real world are often completely different things, and gardeners who see that clearly tend to make smarter calls. Arsenic is technically organic. That label alone doesn't tell the whole story. The 3% solution from the pharmacy is about as benign as anything that goes on a plant. The 30% food-grade version does exist, but the ratios are entirely different at that concentration, and getting it wrong will burn plants badly. The regular drugstore bottle is the right call. Understanding what something actually is and does, rather than just trusting whatever the packaging says, is exactly what separates gardeners who make smart choices from those who just follow trends. That's the thinking behind every video on this channel. Subscribe. Keeping a journal also makes a bigger practical difference than most people expect. Write down when problems appeared, what the weather was doing, which spray was used, at what concentration, on what schedule, and what the result looked like. Read it back over winter when everything's quiet. Build next season's plan based on what actually happened, not on vague memory. Having a record of when specific diseases tend to arrive in a particular climate makes it far easier to get ahead of them the following year. Instead of guessing when to start spraying, there's actual data from the season before. Here's something about gardening that doesn't get said often enough. Depending on when someone starts and how long they keep going, there might be 50 growing seasons in a whole lifetime, maybe fewer. That's genuinely not many chances to get things right. A musician practices every single day for decades. A gardener gets 1 season per year, 1 window to notice when the blight shows up, 1 opportunity to test a routine, 1 shot to observe what actually works. Writing things down isn't being overly cautious, it's just making those 50 seasons count for something. Temperature, humidity, the date a specific disease showed up. Track those things over a few years and the patterns become obvious. Eventually, it's clear which week things tend to go wrong, And if the spray routine is already running by then, there's nothing left to react to. That's the difference between a season that feels like constant damage control and one that actually holds together from start to finish. A $2 bottle from the drugstore. The right ratio. A routine started 2 weeks early. All of it written down. Do that one season, and the next one gets a little easier. Do it for a few seasons, and it stops feeling like guessing and starts feeling like actually knowing what's coming.